and more refugees are being turned away at the border. Families fleeing bomb attacks in Syria.
Police cracked down against Israeli demonstrators.
People fleeing extreme drought.
Around 200 people have sunk in the Aegean Sea. Around the world, more than 300 million people are seeking refuge. We ask why? Because no one should have to flee. Make up your own mind. DW. Made for minds. They've had no peace for 4 decades. The people of Iraq. How did it come to this? Key eyewitnesses reveal an unprecedented story. Misery, no more life. The great documentary series, Iraq, Destruction of a Nation, starts March 4th on DW.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. Fierce fighting is taking place on multiple fronts as Ukraine battles a full-scale Russian invasion one day after it started. The Ukrainian government says at least 137 people have been killed and hundreds more wounded. In the capital, Kyiv, many residents spent Thursday night in shelters. Explosions were reported in the city in the early hours of Friday morning. US President Joe Biden has announced a new wave of sanctions. Although the US has ruled out military intervention in Ukraine, Biden said that Washington would, however, defend every inch of NATO territory in Eastern Europe. EU leaders agreed on a new package of sanctions targeting various sectors of the Russian economy. Although 2,000 people have been arrested in Russia after they turned out to protest their country's invasion of Ukraine. Anti-war demos were held in multiple cities across the country, including Moscow and St. Petersburg. Authorities have ordered Russian media to only broadcast information about the war that they get from official sources. This is DW News from Berlin. You can get more news on our website, dw.com.
War has returned to Europe. In the early hours of Thursday, Russian tanks and troops rolled across the border in a full invasion of Ukraine. Just moments after their president, Vladimir Putin, announced on television he would launch a so-called special military operation. That operation's prompted a chorus of condemnation, vows to hold Kremlin accountable. But when it comes to defending the nation under attack, NATO has made it clear Ukraine is on its own. I'm Michael Oku in Berlin, and this is The Day. This 24th of February is a terrible day for Ukraine and a dark day for Europe.
It is President Putin who is bringing war back to Europe.
I'm addressing you, the Russian people, as a Ukrainian citizen. We are separated by a border stretching more than 2,000 kilometers. And right now, there are 200,000 of your soldiers there. This could mark the start of a major war on the European continent.
One state that is responsible for what is happening now in Ukraine, that is Russia.
The European Union and its people stand by Ukraine and its people.
There is no justification for all this. This is Putin's war.
Putin chose this war.
and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
To our viewers on PBS in the United States and all around the world, welcome. They're being called Europe's darkest hours since World War II. Amid the chorus of condemnation and outrage, the historic dimensions of Russia's invasion of Ukraine are left in no doubt. By launching a full-scale attack on a sovereign nation, Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent a shockwave through the global political order. Both the US and the EU say the world will hold the Kremlin accountable for its actions. Putin is warning that any outside interference in Ukraine will lead to consequences, and I'm quoting now, never seen in history. The push to find a diplomatic solution to the standoff was both frantic and fruitless. In an emergency meeting of the Security Council, UN Chief Antonio Guterres urged Putin to give peace a chance. Instead, the Russian leader appeared on television, denouncing the Ukrainian government as fascist and telling soldiers to lay down their arms and go home. Soon after his speech, bomb blasts rang out in Kiev, Ukraine's capital, the city of Kharkiv, the nation's second largest, and Kramatorsk in the east. A look now at how the day unfolded.
With dawn came the bombs. Russia attacked sites across Ukraine. The Russian troops that had been amassing on the border for weeks started rolling in, recorded on surveillance cameras by Ukraine's border police. Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, announced the military operation in a broadcast on Russian TV. He disparaged Ukraine's democratically elected government and asked Ukrainian soldiers to surrender. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky introduced martial law, and he made an emotional plea to Russians.
I'm addressing you, the Russian people, as a Ukrainian citizen. We are separated by a border stretching more than 2,000 kilometers, and right now there are 200,000 of your soldiers there. Your leadership has authorized them to move into the territory of another country. And this could mark the start of a major war on the European continent.
Black smoke from a Ukrainian military airport in Chugiev in the east of the country. Russia confirms that they bombed the site. A housing block was hit, and distraught residents were left grieving the first casualties in a new war they did not want.
DW has a team on the ground in Ukraine as we try to monitor this fast-moving and volatile situation. Correspondent Fanny Fashar spoke to us earlier today from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. We asked if people there were afraid as Russian troops draw closer.
Actually, it really depends who you talk to. It's really, you do see the fear in people's eyes, regardless whether they say that they stay put and they want to resist with or without arms. But that fear basically results in different reactions. Some people left or trying to leave Ukraine. There are long, long queues that are forming both on the highways towards the west, long queues forming at gasoline stations. People were packing up on food and basic things at the few supermarkets that were still open here in Kyiv. So there are people who are really panicking and they want to leave. But then there are others who are concerned as well, but they say they're not going to take the sovereignty, the freedom, the democracy of the country away. In fact, I've just seen a few hours ago a young man on his bicycle carrying a Ukrainian flag. He was the only man here, the only person here at Maidan, at Independence Square. And it really was a picture to me that, yes, there's concern, there's fear, but there's also a sense or a mood of basically not having Russia to say what the future of this country is.
DW's Fanny Fashar earlier in Kyiv. Our correspondents will be reporting developments on the ground for as long as they can. You can follow them on Twitter at DW News and track our live updates on DW.com.
This is a deliberate, cold-blooded, and long-planned invasion. Despite its litany of lies, denials, and disinformation, the Kremlin's intentions are clear for the world to see. Russia's leaders bear full responsibility for their reckless actions and the lives lost.
That was NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg reacting to the biggest challenge to face the alliance since the end of the Cold War. Russia's invasion triggered a flurry of emergency meetings about how at NATO, the EU, and even the G7, NATO is now moving reinforcements to the east, but says it has no plans to send troops into Ukraine. The EU is meanwhile promising the harshest sanctions it has ever imposed. Here's European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
These sanctions will suppress Russia's economic growth, increase the borrowing costs, raise inflation, intensify capital outflow, and gradually erode its industrial basis. We want to cut off Russia's industry from the technologies desperately needed today to build a future.
DW Brussels correspondent Terry Schultz joins me now. Terry, we heard von der Leyen promising measures that would destroy Russia's economy, unprecedented sanctions. How much pain can the EU inflict?
That remains to be seen, Michael, because, of course, the European Union has in the past imposed what it thought were very tough sanctions on the Russian government, on the Russian economy, in an effort to change its behavior before. And obviously that hasn't worked, as we can see tonight from the way that Russia is taking over Ukraine. So the European Union says this is an unprecedented package of sanctions that's now been passed, and that it will be more far-reaching than ever before. What Ursula von der Leyen has said is that they want to cut off Russia's ability to wage war. Seems a little bit late for that at this moment, but that's the effort going forward.
Yeah. Terry, let's get real for a moment. Sanctions are one thing, but they're likely not going to make a bit of difference over the next 48 hours on the ground. Right now, it looks to the world that Ukraine has to fight its way out of this on its own. So what sort of help can the EU offer Ukraine?
It's very difficult to see what help the EU can offer Ukraine at the moment if you're talking about simply trying to preserve the country's sovereignty and its independence. Ukraine is in a battle for its life right now. In fact, Michael, I've just come out of an intelligence briefing with a Western official that says that we may see the capital of Kyiv falling within less than a day. So, when you're talking about possible economic assistance, development aid, those kind of things may ring a bit hollow now to Ukrainians really trying to fight to preserve their country.
Let's take a listen to the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz earlier tonight.
Russia's President Putin has decided to attack Ukraine militarily. This is an attack on an independent sovereign country and cannot be justified by anything or anyone. It's an attempt at shifting borders with violent means in Europe, maybe even to eradicate a whole country from the map of the world.
Terry, the rhetoric we're hearing is astonishing. I mean, the idea that Russia is trying to eradicate an entire country. You've covered European affairs for many years. How much of a shock has this been there in Brussels?
Many people will tell you that what is happening right now is not a shock, because we have seen this buildup on Ukraine's borders now for many months, and President Putin has done it before. So again, this intelligence briefing that I just had said, this is what was predicted he could do, and officials said that he may do it. So many people are not surprised. I think that it is nonetheless alarming to everyone how quickly the Russian forces are able to take over Ukraine. I'm told that Kiev's two main airports are now under Russian control, a military airport and a civilian airport, that Ukraine has lost control of its airspace already, and that we should take Putin at his word when he says he intends to take over the entire country. So this may have been coming, and some people may say that they're not surprised, but I think everyone will agree that this is disturbing.
Well, the Russian troops were certainly positioned for a swift movement there, that's for sure. Is there a sense there that the EU and NATO overstepped by trying too hard to bring Ukraine into the fold?
actually, you hear a lot of the opposite. I'm around a lot of Ukrainian journalists who say, if you had given Ukraine NATO membership, Russia would never have dared to step foot on our territory. They are, quite bitter about the fact that Ukraine has been promised eventual membership since 2008, but not given that open door policy. The European Union has signed free trade agreements with Ukraine. Of course, that doesn't give you much military assistance when it comes to Russian forces invading your country. So I don't think the Ukrainians would have said that the EU and NATO overstepped. I think they would say that they understepped.
So, in fact, if Ukraine had been pulled into NATO earlier, that would have been a deterrent to Vladimir Putin. Ukraine's neighbors are now expecting a wave of Ukraine. How's Brussels trying to get ahead of this?
That's right. And today we did hear Ursula von der Leyen say that all of the frontline states that could expect to receive refugees from Ukraine, the Baltic states and Poland, have been prepared for this, that there is European Union assistance going to these countries. And she said something that I think may be welcome to the Ukrainians suffering so much at this moment. She said that they welcome in the EU, that the EU is prepared to accept them. She called them refugees right from the beginning. There's no question that they need a safe place while their country is under attack. So yes, the European Union says that it will help take care of these Ukrainians who are fleeing the Russian assault.
That is Terry Schultz in Brussels. Many thanks, Terry. That was the picture here in Europe. Across the Atlantic, U.S. President Joe Biden convened a meeting of his National Security Council. Washington had already slapped sanctions on Russian banks and oligarchs. Now, after the attack, even heavier penalties are on the way.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. For months, we've been building a coalition of partners representing well more than half the global economy. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen to be part of the global economy. Let me say it again. Our forces are not and will not be engaged in a conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East.
Let's get a reaction from Washington now. DW's Oliver Salet is standing by. We've heard Biden's response. Russia will pay dearly for Putin's war. How much pain is on the way?
Well, that is the big question, Michael, just how effective those sanctions will be. President Biden described them as severe. He laid out how 4 more banks, Russian banks, will be completely blocked off the U.S. financial markets. And overall, those sanctions are rather targeting the financial sector, not so much the energy sector. Also, SWIFT, that financial system that is needed for financial institutions to send money in and out of Russia, is not included. There were some reports suggesting that Germany and Italy